Mama, hi.
Mm. Hi, darling.
Thank you so much for coming on here and, having a little chit chat with me.
My pleasure. We're gonna get
Um,
to the thick of it, right?
yeah, let's get to the thick of it. Let's get into it. First thing I kind of wanted to talk about was navigating divorce.
Hmm.
And well, maybe give because I know the full story, but people that possibly are listening don't know the full story. So maybe give brief background of, what happened between you and dad, and then, you know, how you navigated after divorce, what that looked like, what came, like maybe some words of advice for people who could be navigating divorce or separation.
Okay, and keep it brief, eh?
As brief as possible. It's not, do you.
Okay. Yeah. I married your dad in my late 20s. And, you know, what I want to say right off the hop is I had no intention of getting married. And you know all about this. We've talked. So I had no intention of getting married, didn't want to get married. And your dad came along. And what happened was that what kicked in was really kicked in for me at that time. The reason I married him is a whole lot of family expectation, society expectation, patterning. You have to remember this is back like, close to 40 years ago now. So things were different.
Mhm.
And so I, ended up marrying him. And I didn't listen to my intuition. I did not listen to my intuition, which was stay single, find your own way. Now, in my heart, that didn't mean not having a relationship at some point. At that time, this is not the right time.
Yeah.
Not now. So anyway, that happened. And you could say I married the wrong person. However, my perspective now on that is that there are no mistakes in life,
Mhm.
period. Nothing.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
totally.
therefore so therefore, looking back now, you know, marrying your dad and parting ways was the biggest gift for me because of what I learned about myself and everything that set me on the path of my own to love myself and my own personal freedom. And
Yeah.
there's, to learn how to give love, receive love, and my own personal freedom. So, you know, in the course of, when your dad left, it was we had been married almost 30 years. And well, of course, what came of that marriage also for me was four beautiful daughters. One, as you know, who is deceased now, the oldest. But what came, each of you girls as well reflected back to me a lot of aspects of myself. So, what a gift. I mean, just amazing. Anyway, your dad and I, we did not have a similar approach to life
Mhm.
at all. We were on two different pages. We had nothing in common. Well, we sort of did. And what I would say is, which happens a lot, people marry or they have a committed relationship based on weakness
Right.
rather than strengths.
Mhm.
So, yes, your dad and I had some things in common, but you know, not nowhere near enough to sustain a relationship for the long haul.
Mhm.
And
So, like, when you mean by marrying for weakness, do you mean, Like, you were out seeking a partner that filled areas of your life that you, like, were lacking? Is that what you mean by often people marry for weakness, or what do you mean by that?
No, no, like, and I'm saying these things, I recognize them now. I didn't
Mhm.
recognize them at the time.
Yeah.
The weakness, I would say, for instance, the thing that your dad and I had in common was, and it's much more obvious with him than it is with me, but your dad's first and foremost value is freedom.
Mhm.
And along with that freedom was fierce independence and rebellion
Mhm.
and kind of a uniqueness. It's a very intriguing person.
Yeah.
And I have those qualities as well in a different way. You know, I'm going to make it my own way, damn it.
Mhm.
And, don't tell me what to do, you know?
Mhm.
So, but those things where they were, we were, but each of us was functioning on the shadow side, the weak side of those attributes.
Right.
So, and there's others. And so, we picked up on those things in each other.
Mhm.
And, you're going to confront, if you're in a relationship long enough, you're going to confront all of those things at
Mhm.
some time or other.
Yeah. I feel
So,
like I feel like some people call, like, I don't know if this is what you're talking about or not, but sometimes in dating nowadays, people refer to something like that as trauma bonding. So you meet
yes.
with someone and then they dump all of their trauma on you on within like the first couple dates or something like that. And you might feel so connected with them, but that's what your relationship is built off of. It's built off of like connecting over trauma. It's not actually built off a strong foundation. It's like that's the only reason you guys are connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know that it was, I mean, there's levels of trauma bonding,
Mhm.
right? But I would say yes. I mean, it wasn't trauma bonding as in immediate in the moment trauma bonding.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all the trauma and all of the behaviors and the patterning out of having lived lives of trauma,
Mhm. Mhm.
of conditioning and patterning and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, y- yeah, that's what I would say about that. And, so right off the hop, we didn't connect well. We couldn't communicate.
Mhm.
We couldn't find a way to communicate well. And there wasn't the most fundamental things were not in place, secure foundation of intimacy, which is built on solid communication, you
Yeah.
know, that wasn't there. So, anyway, 30 years later, we part our ways. And, within the first, I mean, your dad told me that he was leaving like early on a Saturday morning.
Mhm.
And of course, I was in shock and incredibly upset. And, that night I, wailed and pounded my fist on pillows and just started, really started the grieving person.
Mhm.
And the next day, though, Sunday, it was a beautiful sunny day. And I heard, the still quiet voice of myself say, you can start over.
Mhm.
You can start over. And right there on the spot, I decided, okay, I'm I'm reinventing myself and I don't care what it takes because I had compromised and given up so much of myself in that relationship,
Mhm.
in, raising kids, and in an effort to somehow thinking that somehow this relationship just might mesh and just still might have a chance.
Mhm.
And so I really lost myself in it, which is pretty typical too. So that's, yeah. So 24 hours within 24 hours. And that decision was absolutely, it was quiet in the moment. It was absolutely critical to finding my way because I had made that decision. It was locked in. And that decision, like when I just put one foot in front of the other every day, opportunities and doors and the right people came into my life,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
people to encourage me. Or now I never did. I had friends who listened to me, but I never did seek out any kind of divorce support group or anything like that. But that's me. My decision was that I was going to, because now I needed to work to keep a roof over my head. And so I decided I was going to just get very simple work where I could just focus on me, and mostly where I could allow grieving
Mhm.
because I was very much in shock. So, and that's what, took me into the work that allowed me to be alone. I purposely chose work to allow me to be alone. And because most of the time, I mean, I could not control tears and rage and all of that. And I wanted to be doing the kind of work where I could literally be bawling my eyes out at the same time.
Mhm.
So I did that. And, the first 2 years were an absolute blur. I didn't know which way was up. And, I really missed my kids, particularly my youngest,
Yeah.
who I never, yeah. Anyway, that's a
Well,
different story.
just pause for 1 second. So, for anyone who's listening, my mom referring to the youngest is me,
Mhm.
and I moved out when I was 13, not long before my dad left my mom, and so there was a big whirlwind of shock in the family, especially with my mom because she didn't lose me, but ultimately had a shock of having her 13-year-old daughter move out and then have her husband of 30 years leave her shortly after that. That's kind of a little bit of a backstory of that. Okay,
Yeah.
continue on. Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So, into 3 years, oh, 3 years later, I'm, I can feel that I'm coming out of it, starting to come out of the grieving at least.
Mhm.
And I could not, I mean, I had to grieve first. There was no such thing as doing sort of any kind of personal work at that
Right.
point. I,
Yeah.
I, I mean,
You were
my
just
whole
kinda trying
body.
to survive at this point.
That's right. And the shock was, my whole body was locked into shock, like for those first couple of years.
Mhm.
And so then, the four, year four rolls around, and I'm feeling pretty good and thinking, well, I'm feeling like maybe I could get out socialized and I need to meet people. And so I started to take dance lessons. And because I wanted the exercise, I wanted the music, I wanted the socializing. And so that was a very interesting experience because it really brought up a lot for me.
Mm.
Dancing, just dancing with men. I mean, it
Yeah.
really brought up a lot for me. And but I stuck it out until COVID started.
Mhm.
And And it was very good for me. I learned a lot about myself. I grew in confidence a great deal.
Mhm.
Anyway, before COVID or before, that's like, I don't know, 6 or 6.5 years before I started, or before COVID started. So when I started then I did an awful lot of introspection, a
Mhm.
great introspection, a lot of journaling,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot about myself, a great deal about myself, and of course began to think about the possibility of another relationship, which absolutely terrified me,
Mhm.
absolutely terrified me. And I thought, well, I know that there's no hurry here. I know first and foremost that I need to be confident, that I need to be absolutely in love with myself. And you can't fake that.
No.
You can't fake it.
No, you cannot.
So you know, when I became anxious or bombarded with self doubt, I would look into what was going on. I would go introspective and look into what was going on.
Mhm.
And so for me, this might sound like a long time for a lot of people, but I would say that that was probably like a 7, 8 year process.
Mhm.
Now, the thing to remember is, because what I realized in this process, of course, is that everything that I was in my marriage, I was long before my marriage.
Yeah.
Those are things so I was going back and reconciling as far as I could remember. And so putting the pieces together and setting myself free from all of those things that I thought were true of myself, and they weren't at all.
Yeah, all these stories and limiting
All these
beliefs
stories,
you
all
were
these stories.
rewriting after this marriage, yeah. And I
So
think
it's
the other piece that too that, like, is kinda interesting is I feel like oftentimes when people are in relationships for that long or married for that long or not even that long, even people who are in relationships for a couple years, their identity ends up being engulfed in that other person or that relationship, and then they kinda lose who they are, and I think a lot of after separating is finding who you are and figuring out getting back to your identity and maybe reclaiming or finding a new identity or whatever that looks like for a certain individual, and you definitely have evolved into this, like, 2.0 person after leaving dad or after dad left you, I guess, but yeah.
yeah, and, the the gifts that I one of the gifts that I received out of that is to come out of that marriage is to come full circle, taking responsibility for my part in it.
Mhm.
And there's absolutely coming and totally, yeah, taking responsibility for my part in it and forgiving myself more than so-called forgiving your dad.
Mhm.
It was forgiving myself for having compromised myself, for having abandoned myself, for having, functioned in my shadows, like one of them being, like, oh, why the hell did I stay in a marriage that didn't work for that long?
Mhm.
Well, you know, I have incredible patience and incredible strength and incredible loyalty and endurance. The flip side of that is when, so I stayed too long. I didn't have to stay that long.
Mhm.
However, to be compassionate with myself, I had 4 daughters. And at one point, two of them were in a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And so it was pretty damn tough to walk at that point.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so I would say that, I've worked through everything and I'm free of the things that held me back and I'm completely free of this relationship.
Mhm.
I don't have, I see my strengths now, and I have certainly fallen in love with myself and know what I have to offer.
Mhm.
I have a lot to offer. So, those are big, big gifts.
Mhm. They are. And I have to say too, like, I think with you evolving after leaving dad, it's like was a weird transition for the whole family and was weird navigating, holidays and still sometimes it's kind of weird, but with that being said, I feel like you transitioning and evolving into this 2.0 person, like I said, has really been such a role model for all of us girls too, because growing up, I mean, I'm just going to call it the way it is. We didn't have a role model of a healthy relationship or a mom showing us like these are how to put boundaries up. This is how to show self-love. This is how to, like I feel like that's such an important thing for a little girl growing up is to see your mom hold boundaries, like not compromise herself, not, do all these things because like that's what you're teaching us to do. So to see you evolve into this new person and learn to fully love yourself and learn to have boundaries and learn to not compromise on what's important to you and all of these things was a really important thing for all of us. I know it was for me. I can't speak for Tiffany and Christine, but like that was a really, really cool thing to see for me. And I know like our relationship has grown so much because we both have evolved and we've been able to develop this amazing relationship because you've had room to grow into, I believe, who you're meant to be. And you're still growing into who you're
Still
meant to be.
growing,
But
continue
yeah,
to grow. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that's been a really cool aspect too that you've been able to showcase.
Well, that's great. That was my intention actually when we were still together as a family was to be I wanted very much to be a role model for my daughters. And of course, that all got lost. I thought I was going to do that through business.
Right.
So that didn't happen. And, I just lost my way. I
Hmm.
lost my way. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
good for
happens.
me.
I think that happens very easily. But I feel like the underlying things here, is just I feel like when people separate, whether it's a breakup or divorce or whatever it is, kind of knowing that it's a journey, like it's really shitty when it happens. It feels so shitty. It's like uncontrollable, like you said, grief on and off. And there's no specific timeline. Like yeah, it took you a few years to get to a point where you were not in shock or not like numb to what was going on or whatever. And that looks different for everyone. But I think the idea is just like embracing the suck and putting one foot forward at a time, one step in front of the other, and just having so much faith that you're gonna get to the other side and know that there's gonna be so much growth that comes from it, even though it's like the shittiest thing to go through.
Yeah.
And this is similar to, well, I can't say it's similar to, but I want to compare it to losing someone or
Mhm.
grieving a person. Because when you lose someone and they're gone, it's, the shittiest feeling ever. And you like, you're stuck in this. You don't understand how you could possibly get out of this, like, really shitty place, but it's just small steps, one foot in front of the other, and not falling complacent backwards. And like, you have to make a conscious decision like you did. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to be a better person. It's making that conscious decision, even if you're grieving, even if it hurts, even if it sucks, like just recognizing, okay, that's my conscious decision. Doesn't mean this isn't going to be awful, but I am going to get through this, you know?
Right. Well, and I wanted to be fully me. I wanted to be fulfilled.
Mhm.
And so, a marriage didn't work, put that all in my face. So all the things that I needed to change. So really, the truth is, with or without that marriage, I still needed to overcome and integrate things into myself.
Mhm.
So it's just, y- you know, the marriage mirrored everything back to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not complicated.
Yeah, it's not complicated, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, you know, I've always been a very introspective and contemplative person,
Mhm.
and as you know, can be quite stubborn.
Yeah. You and dad.
Yeah. So, and we won't go there.
No.
So I also wanted to really dive deeply into self exploration and
Mhm.
be very, very thorough with healing myself
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I feel like that's so important after
yeah,
divorce.
because
Mhm.
to I wanted so badly to live the life that I was really here for.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that, that stubbornness served me well there.
Yes. So, I wanna kinda transition into maybe the next topic, but just to wrap up what we're talking about, if you could give someone who is going through divorce or separation, or just possibly maybe going through grief in general, like I think it could be all relative.
Yeah.
What are, maybe three pieces of advice you would give to them while going through this to get through it?
I would say be kind and patient and gentle with yourself. First and foremost, love yourself. Love yourself and surround yourself with people who will treat you the same, who, they don't have to fix you, nothing like that. They just love and accept you the way you are.
Mhm.
And so, absolutely love yourself first, put yourself first always, and really go inside and get to know yourself and search for what is really true to you. Who am I? And what is true to you?
Mhm.
And live your life determined, determined
That's
to
good.
to honor that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're going to be learning that lesson some way or other. You're going to
Mhm.
learn down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good.
You can't force it. I mean, you take as much time as you need. I took a long time. Some people don't take that long.
Mhm.
But the point is, you'll know when you feel complete, put all together, and the joy and the bliss of the true you starts to bubble to the surface. And
Mhm.
then you know, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember everything that I said we were gonna maybe talk about, but I know one of them was aspects of your
And
mhm.
key to a happy, fulfilled life.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
I found there was a lot of overlap as I was considering these topics. There's a lot of overlap with perspective on age and key to happy and fulfilled life. And
Yeah, I bet. Let's kinda transition into health because it's crazy how much your health has changed. I feel when I think about your health, I think about since dad, but it just your health keeps shifting and getting better throughout the years, I feel like, and you
Mhm.
consistently have been making choices in your life to actively be healthy and, swapping out alternatives and recently having a very consistent exercise routine and a weightlifting routine, which is I think as a kid, well, I'm not a kid, but as your kid, that is the most generous thing you can do, like for me, because you're showing me that you're showing up for your health and you are committed to longevity and that kind of thing. I think that the most selfish thing to do as a parent is to let your health go by wayside and not care about your health, not be committed to your health, and oftentimes I feel like this is a little sidetrack, but oftentimes I feel like parents, they don't take care of their health, don't have any what's the word I'm looking for? Well, they don't prioritize themselves when it comes to their health. They prioritize their kids over everything. They prioritize maybe their husband over everything or their wife over everything, whatever that looks like. And they
Mhm.
don't take care of their health. They, really compromise in so many areas of their health. When the reality is that actually your kid needs to A, see you showing up for yourself. They need to
Yeah.
see that so
Yeah.
that you have that role model and that's the role model that you see growing up. B, it's actually so generous for your children to be showing up healthy and to be committed to your health because that's longevity. And that maybe wouldn't be so apparent or at the front of my mind if it weren't for dad. Dad not taking care of his health and having so many health issues. And then us girls being the ones that are taking care of him. Like I want to have a life with dad, but we don't know what's gonna happen, right? And, like, I'm just so grateful for your health, I'm so grateful for you showing up, and I'm so grateful for how much your health has changed, shifted, and evolved and become, like you've just become so healthy, and I'm so grateful that you are where you're at. How has it been transitioning, taking care of your health?
Well, what I want to say as I mean, you said a lot of things that I would have said.
Mhm.
You know, it's that's just another way parents taking care of themselves is obviously a way, and I shouldn't say obviously because I didn't do it, when they're younger,
Mhm.
but it it's a great model for kids how to respect and love themselves. It's another way of respecting and loving yourself and
Yeah.
setting your boundaries and saying, I'm worthy,
Mhm.
right? I deserve this. And that was the lack of confidence and the unworthiness was an underlying thing for me all of my life.
Mhm.
Plus a so okay, before I go farther, I'm just going to say, I would have to say probably the biggest contributor to the guilt and shame and lack of confidence, unworthiness, a whole lot of things that contributed to my mental health, my physical health, and the decision to put everybody else before me and neglect myself. The biggest contributor to all of that was being raised in a fundamental Christian home.
Mm.
And those Christian values of serving everybody else before me
Mhm.
and the guilt and shame, you know, if you don't do that,
Yeah.
it's and so it took me the one of the biggest things in coming back from this marriage and what I did to myself was undoing all of that programming.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I have very, very good health. I've always had anyway, but there were things that if my whole attitude and if that patterning wasn't in at play, I could have done things that would have helped my emotional and mental health,
Yeah.
you know, that would have helped me to establish boundaries.
Mhm.
You know, it's all plays together.
Mhm.
But by far, the biggest player was the fundamental belief system,
Right.
and
Yeah.
very, very self-destructive.
Yeah.
Um,
I yeah, that's very true. I wanna talk about how you've shifted, 'cause like, on this topic with your belief systems, your stories, your limiting beliefs, and this stuff is crazy because when you start believing a certain thing, it starts to, create itself as reality because your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and not reality. So
yeah,
when you truly believe something, it becomes reality. It starts to show up in your life, it starts to manifest. That's why manifestation is such a real thing.
yeah.
And just to kind of like transition into this topic, how you have really shifted your mindset around your age, because I think a lot of people let their age hold them back in so many different areas, whether that's like health that we're talking about. So like stopping working out because they're like, "Oh, I'm this age, I can't do that anymore. My body can't do that, whatever." Or maybe it's not starting a business because of your age, or maybe it's, you know, whatever it may be, age related. People have so many ingrained ideas and beliefs and stories due to that.
Mhm.
And I just want to talk about how you've shifted that and how, like, what it's done for your health, because you have had a massive shift in your health because of this adjustment in your beliefs.
Right. Okay. I just had this aha moment where in church one day where I thought, what am I doing here? This doesn't align with me. Basically, around health and age, I have come to the place where anything that I focus on, that I imagine for my health and my personal belief is that I am always well.
Mhm.
I'm always well
Mhm.
in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm always well. And in fact, moment by moment, I'm getting younger.
Mhm. Yeah, and your health has changed so much in the past couple years. Like I mentioned, you're in the best shape of your life. You seem the healthiest to me. Like you seem like you have the most energy. It seems like you are continually on this path of becoming healthier and healthier and healthier. And it is interesting because we've had this conversation before about how as people age, they let that hold them back, and they'll say like what are some comments that people often say about their age? When people are your age, what are some things that you hear oftentimes from people around you regarding their age? And
No,
that's not something that
I hear different versions of, oh, I guess it's just my age.
Mhm. Right.
This, that, or the other thing is just my age.
Mhm.
And, and it's not.
Yeah.
Again, that's that's the influence of society and buying into that,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, because you can have radical health into late years,
Yes, you can.
Like you see way older people having radical health.
Yes.
And yeah, it comes down to A, your beliefs, but then also the action you're taking in your life towards health. You like manifestation of certain degrees has two aspects. It's action and belief. And that's
Action,
exactly what you're doing.
action, belief, and letting go, because there's the element of not forcing something.
Mhm.
Because when you force which is a tricky aspect because when you force something, you're creating resistance
Right.
and your manifestation backfires on you.
Yeah, I think it's coming from a place of belief that is, like, so so understanding and so knowing that it's gonna happen, but also, like, you have so much faith and you know that it's gonna happen, but it's not coming from a place of desperation.
Right.
It's coming from an abundant state, and I think that's the most important thing is since it's coming from an abundant state and you have so much faith that it will happen, if it doesn't happen, it's fine. You've let go of the outcome because you're so abundant. But you know, you have so much faith and you believe that it will happen, but you're coming from a place of abundance that, you know.
Well, to be in that place of abundance, a person does have to love themselves.
Mhm.
And it sounds trite, but for some people, that's a very long journey.
Mhm.
A lot of people,
Yeah.
that's a long journey.
Yeah.
And so you can only be you have to come from a place of self-love and from knowing that you're worthy.
Mhm.
And so then, you know, when you're the thing about manifestation is that, you can you can manifest, you can imagine something wonderful for your life and that you know that that's going to happen when you don't want it anymore
Mhm.
because, you know, because you've already got it.
Yeah.
You've got it. You're done. That's the
Mhm.
letting go. It's knowing that you've got it. It's like going to a restaurant and ordering a meal. Once you've had that wonderful meal and eaten it, you're satisfied. You don't want it anymore.
Mhm.
You got it.
Mhm.
You don't keep, you know. So anyway,
I think that what the gist of what I wanted to get to with you on this topic is that, you know, health is not linear. Like, there's, of course, things that are subjectively healthy and not healthy. Like, if you eat a bag of chips, that's probably subjectively not healthy. It's filled with a shit ton of seed oils and chemicals and whatever. And, oranges would be a better alternative than chips, or you know what I'm trying to say?
mhm,
But
mhm,
also, health is not linear because, yes, underlying to your health conditions and you've had relatively a healthy life, but there's other people who have had extremely unhealthy lives, and a lot of that is due to conditioning, trauma resulting and showing up in the body. And so I think it's interesting to talk about these topics, how when you've shifted your perspective and you have literally manifested health into your body because you haven't changed a lot of your habits. Your habits haven't changed drastically enough for your health to change as much as it has been, but what has changed is your belief system, what you're telling yourself, all this stuff. So it's so true that this can change your health, and I think it's really crucial for people with chronic disease and things like that. And I know it's more complicated than that, but a lot of people with chronic diseases, those come from trauma-induced, like, it's trauma-induced, a lot of, like, Gabor talks about this in his book, Myth and Normal, how trauma results in the body, and it'll show up because you know what? When you are in a consistent state of trauma, your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive all the time. Your body's inflamed. Things are not operating properly. When you're in a consistent state of fight or flight,
stress,
your
stress.
body is going, yeah, when you're in a consistent state of stress or fight or flight, of course, your body is going to have a domino effect of health issues. So
Mhm.
you have to figure out how to regulate your nervous system, bring your body back down, and figure out those health issues. And part of that is retraining your beliefs and, rewiring your nervous system that way too. So I think this is just a really interesting topic. I think we could talk about it for a long time, but I feel like that's, the gist of
Well,
it.
the health issues really start inside out.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Rather than treating symptoms, you treat yourself, you treat your again, it's the self-love, comes down to self-love, attitudes, your attitudes toward life, and the subsequent choices that you make.
Mhm.
So those are it sounds very simplistic, but again, that's a long journey.
It is, yeah. To end it off, I want to ask you, what is your biggest piece of advice or couple pieces of advice as to how to live a fulfilling life? And what, you know, just tell me a couple pieces of advice as to,
I can keep it short.
okay.
Okay, so first and foremost, love yourself first. Stay true to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And make choices for you. Do what you love. Do what you love. Don't
Yeah.
compromise.
No matter what.
There's no guilt in that, no
Mhm.
shame in that. Love yourself first. You cannot give, you cannot be fulfilled, you cannot have a healthy relationship. Nothing works if you don't love yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cliche, but it's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
Everything else will start to fall into place.
Mhm.
Your health, your relationships, everything.
It all circles back. Okay, well, mother, this has been a time.
It has.
This has been fun, and thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming to talk with me because I love you so much.